My mom worked at Tampa General Hospital during the 1980s on the graveyard shift with like 4 other women and 1 guy. In 1984, a serial killer started a spree during the summer, and his victims were young women. I think they were later discovered to be prostitutes. My mom and her co-workers were all in their 20s at the time. So after one of the murders made news again, they got really nervous about having to walk back to their cars at the end of their shift in the middle of the night. So the one male co-worker, Bobby Joe Long, walked them to the parking garage, my mom included. A few weeks later, Long was arrested and charged with all the murders after one of his intended victims escaped. So yeah. I rented a cabin for a week with my girlfriend. The first night there, we had spent the day visiting her family. We had dinner, and she got pretty wasted. We get back to the cabin, and I carry my girlfriend inside to find all our bags opened and dumped on the floor. This set me in panic mode. I hadn't been drinking, and I routinely carry, so I pull out my gun and sweep the house. I check every room, closets, even under the bed. Nothing. My girlfriend is still fast asleep, so I check our stuff over and there's nothing missing. It had just been dumped onto the floor. So I look around some more, all the windows are locked and the back door was even dead-bolted. It just really bothered me that there was no sign of break-in. I know I locked the place before I left, so either someone else had a key to my cabin, or whoever it was still inside the cabin. Either way, I didn't think I'd do much sleeping. It was too late to make any other arrangements, and considering that, most likely there wasn't anything to worry about, really. We had been gone all day, from 9 a.m. to midnight, so odds are whoever it was did it, and was probably way earlier. But still, I couldn't shake it. I went in, covered up my girlfriend, used the bathroom, set up a rocking chair facing the door, my hand on my gun on my lap. I started watch. I felt pretty silly sitting there, but I couldn't not sit there either, and sometime around 3 to 4 a.m., I fell asleep. I woke up the next morning around 7 a.m., sun shining through the windows. I actually half scared myself because I hadn't meant to fall asleep, which then scared me again because I wasn't holding my gun. I started looking around, and on the couch is my gun. I'm like, what? Then I look. The front door is wide open. I'm like, no fucking way. I jump up and start running to check my girlfriend. Thank God she's still there, untouched. I go back out into the living room and pick up my gun. All my bullets are missing. I go outside and look around, car and everything is still there. No signs of anybody. I walk back inside, look in the far corner of the living room, and I see the corner of the main living room rug lifted up. I investigate, and it's a covering for the opening of a crawl space. This guy was in the cabin the entire time. I must have pulled up and caught the guy in the act, and he thought fast and hid in the crawl space. Then sometime during the night crawled out, disarmed me, and walked right out the front door. Motherfucker. I was walking home from a pub in the city when I saw a car pull up next to a very, very drunk girl who was sitting in the gutter. Something just didn't feel right about the situation, so I walked over just as she was getting into the car and asked if she was okay. I was at the passenger side with the door open and the girl leaning in talking to the driver as he was telling her, "Get in the car." He kept saying he was taxi, urging her to get in the car, and when he started reaching for her hand to pull her in, I looked at him and he was sweating and staring at me. He looked me in the eye and said, I am taxi. That's when I noticed that there were two other men in the back seat of his car, all staring at me and the girl. The driver got a hold of the girl and started to pull her into the car when I grabbed her and told her he wasn't a taxi. All the while he's got this crazed look in his eye and he keeps saying, I am taxi, over and over again. I took the girl away from the car and the men just started to speak in a foreign language and then began to shout at me. I told the girl I will call her a taxi, but that car wasn't a taxi. It had no radio, meter, markings, license, or anything. Plus, there were two men in the back. The fact seemed to dawn on her and sober her up a little bit. The men in the car drove off when I took a picture of their license plate and tried to get a picture of them.